to you all for coming. This is really great. Thanks for having this show for me. So I just had prepared a few little kind of ideas that I've had about this work that I'd like to share with you. This represents about a year's effort and a year's worth of experimentation, because it's kind of new mediums and new things for me. And because I read a lot, and because I don't have time to read you a full-length novel, I'm going to read a short poem that I really like, that a friend helped me discover a few weeks ago. It's by a poet named Cavafy. He's a Greek poet, and he died about 80 years ago, but I think his poem's still relevant. For some people, the day comes when they have to declare the great yes or the great no. It's clear at once who has the yes ready within him, and saying it, he goes forward in honor and self-assurance. He who refuses does not repent. Asked again, he would still say no. Yet that no, the right no, undermines him all his life. And I love that poem because it uses really simple language to convey a very profound idea. And I don't know whether my art is profound, but I'm trying to simplify my language with what I'm doing with these. So one of the reasons that this simplification is happening is that I lived for many years, all my adult life, in the downtown cores of cities, in high-rise apartments, and I've had studios downtown, and I have always been surrounded by this city rush of city downtown messy stuff. And painting is what comes out of your subconscious, and what gets into your subconscious most directly is the stuff that is peripheral. When you're looking directly at something, you're judging and you're defining what you see, but the peripheral stuff kind of gets in there underneath, right? So then I've been working now for the last year in a studio in a basement where my view is not the city stuff, but the wheel of my neighbor's car, right? So that's quite different, and it really has affected the way I worked. And there's also a completely different ratio of sky to buildings when you live in a suburb than when you live in an apartment downtown, right? So all this stuff is getting in there. And then at about the same time that I moved the studio home, I started using acrylic paint, and I stopped using oil. And I have painted with oil for the last kind of 15 years or so and developed a certain level of facility with the medium, and then to switch to acrylic, I felt like I didn't really know how to paint. I had just used a few tricks, and now I didn't have my tricks, and now what was I going to do? So I just started to experiment with the acrylic, and as it turns out, it's a great medium. You can do all this cool stuff with it. It's actually really flexible. You can draw on it, you can layer it in ways, and you don't have to worry about all this stuff you have to worry about before you can, you know. So it's really a lot of fun, and I really like this collection of work because, unlike shows that I've had in the past, I haven't used the same process or even necessarily a similar process for each one. There's an underlying kind of aesthetic, I think, and a kind of urban thing and everything, but this is me experimenting and going, I wonder what this will do. Oh, look at that, that's very cool. So I kind of like that about the show. And the title of the show is Tintinnabulation, which is a real word, and it means kind of like resonance, the ringing or jingling or tinkling sound of bells. And I thought it was the perfect title because this work is kind of a resonance of my urban immersion of basically my adult life until a few years ago. And also it's kind of a celebration idea, right? And I feel very happy about this work, and it has a cool sound, Tintinnabulation, right? It's a nice kind of word, so I like that. So in closing, there's one more poem, another shorty, that I'd like to say. This has been one of my favorite poems for quite a few years. It's by a poet named Rainer Maria Rilke, and it's translated by Robert Bly, who's a poet, and he does these awesome translations of poetry. Poetry is hard to translate. So Rainer Maria Rilke was the German poet. And this poem goes like this. You see, I want a lot. Perhaps I want everything. The darkness that comes with every infinite fall, and the shivering rays of every step up. So many live on and want nothing, and are raised to the rank of prince by the slippery ease of their light judgments. But what you love to see are faces that do work and feel thirst. You love most of all those who need you as they need a crowbar or a hoe. You've not grown old, and it's not too late to dive into your increasing depths, where life calmly gives out its own secret. One of my favorite poems. And last but not least, thank you to my best friend and husband for all his patience and support.
Yes.
So if you have any questions or insights or comments, I'm happy to hear them. I've heard quite a few of them already in the
spent quite a considerable amount of your life in Vancouver. How
About
does that,
10 years.
10
yeah.
years. How does it translate to your, I mean, the urban scene in Vancouver and the urban scene in Calgary? And is that the kind of correlation you find that in your subject matter? Or?
Well, I think, yeah, that's interesting. I remember when I lived in Vancouver is when I first started really specifically painting urban stuff. And one of the things that first got me going is Vancouver is full of these utility poles with the wires, and there's this like incredible linear thing that goes on there visually. You look down an alley and it's all lines, right? So it's really great. I really, really liked that. And when I moved to Calgary, there's a lot less of that because I guess it's all underground here or something, all the kind of concrete and stuff. So there's a kind of a different aesthetic. But I think I think it was you one time, Melanie, made a really interesting comment about my work that it sort of could be any city. It's this kind of urban thing, but it's not about a specific place. And I think that's how I feel about cities because I've lived in, I've moved around a lot in my life, and I've not necessarily always lived in big cities, but I lived in different places, and so it kind of all gets in there. Somebody once asked me how long it took to make a painting, and I said, well, so far 17 years. Because it all kind of gets in there, so yeah. So I don't know if that answers your question.
No,
A little bit. Well, okay.
I just want to remind people to have a look across the hall too. Just directly across, the doors open.
And
There's
specifically, I'm sorry, I'm
Anyone wants to
interrupting
talk
you.
about-
There's a piece in there called Skin, and it's my absolute favorite piece of this whole show, but it's in the other room. And one of the reasons it's my favorite is that because where I live now, I go for walks and I see trees. I see lots of tree branches. Totally different thing. So I made this painting that somehow gets a little bit maybe of urban feel and some tree branch feel, and there's stuff that looks like, maybe circuit boards-ish or something, and then so it kind of, now I've lost my articulation. But I really like that piece, and I think you should look at it. Yeah, so, and maybe let me know what you think about that. Yeah, great. Okay, thanks everyone, very, very much.